Hey, what's happening, guys? So quite a few of you have DM'd me on Instagram asking for an Anthony Gordon video, and I simply had to oblige, even if his move to Newcastle is in the balance at the time of recording. While the fee is huge, it's also to be expected in this current climate, taking the English tax as well as Gordon's remaining 3 years on his current deal at Everton into account. With Chris Wood's departure to Forest on loan, Eddie Howe has made it clear that failing to bring in an attacking reinforcement will leave them dangerously short. And while that may sound slightly over the top, it does have an element of truth to it given the injury history of their current forwards. Needless to say, this will be far from a like-for-like replacement, but that's precisely what makes it so exciting. As a two-footed wide man, Gordon will likely be stuck out on the left flank of Howe's 4-3-3. This will allow Jack Grealish's best mate to stay out on the right and Joe Linton to drop back into midfield, a position in which he's gone from being a Nile Ranger-esque meme to Roy fucking Keane in the space of a few months. Now, Gordon's not exactly going to be the sort of individual to dictate an attacking move, but drifting in and out of action while being surrounded by quality players is why the likes of Chelsea have a concrete interest in him. You know there's a player in there when a tactical mastermind like Thomas Tuchel, who, let's not forget, told Todd Bowley to do one regarding Cristiano Ronaldo, was happy for the club to part with north of 50 million to get this fella through the door. This has led to accusations that Gordon's turning his back on his boyhood club in their time of need. All I can say to those repeatedly stating that is welcome to the real world, my friend. Even if their bullshit PR-driven social media posts or carefully rehearsed interviews may suggest otherwise, 99% of players don't give a toss about anyone but themselves. And frankly speaking, who can blame them? Aside from the fact that the sport is very much a business in every sense of the word now, clubs and fans alike are willing to bin any individual they deem surplus to requirements in a heartbeat. When you couple that with the incessant abuse underperforming players receive on the likes of Twitter and internet forums, it makes complete logical sense for a top-flight footballer to make the best possible move for their career in any given situation, as cold-hearted as it may be. I mean, seriously, loyalties aside, would you rather be at a club who are up for sale, managerless, and bottom of the league, which, ironically, is not too dissimilar to where Newcastle were a year or so ago under the dynamic duo of Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce, or one who are brimming with confidence, challenging the established top six for a Champions League spot, potentially winning a domestic trophy, and improving faster than any other club in the country? It's a bloody no-brainer, really. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a video doing the rounds of Evertonians chasing Gordon out of the ground after a 2-1 defeat to Southampton. While I understand their frustration completely and sympathize with the state they find themselves in, it's hardly the type of environment which is conducive to the progression of a 21-year-old that's been under the microscope ever since the summer transfer window. What blows my mind is that for all the stick he's been getting this season, Gordon still remains the club's joint top scorer and ranks either first or second in pretty much every attacking metric you can think of. All this while only making 2 substitute appearances since Boxing Day and spending the rest of his time on the bench. Obviously, it's a dick move to be skipping training in an attempt to force a move through when you're getting paid a pretty penny by your employers, but unfortunately, it's something we've seen plenty of before and will undoubtedly see countless times again in the future. It should also be noted he didn't throw his toys out the pram when Chelsea were circling around, as many other youngsters in his position would have, and you can only assume the circumstances have grown so toxic that parting ways is best for both parties concerned, and somewhat explains his recent behavior. Moving on to Gordon's background, he was born and bred in Merseyside and joined Everton's academy as an 11-year-old after being released by Liverpool, only to make his senior debut for the Blues 5 years later in the Europa League. Upon getting this taste of first-team football, he was sent back down to the reserves for a year until he impressed sufficiently enough to get back into the first-team fold. Although he looked bright off the bench in his handful of Premier League appearances, both the player and club decided that the best course of action would be to find a loan move, and that's where Preston North End came in. Unfortunately, things didn't quite work out the way anyone would have hoped for, as Alex Neil was sacked shortly after bringing Gordon in, and the next man in charge opted to use wingbacks as opposed to traditional wingers, which left little room for the talented but raw Gordon to make his presence felt. Much like Harry Kane during his numerous loans up and down the country, you were left wondering if Gordon was good enough for the top flight. That all changed last season as he helped Everton beat the drop with his direct and fearless approach during a time when the majority of his teammates looked timid and risk-averse. Although 4 goals and 2 assists across an entire league campaign may seem like nothing to write home about, it was fucking gold dust for the club, especially when you take into account he scored the winner in a crunch 1-0 victory over Man United and laid off the equalizer courtesy of a brilliant free kick for Jared Branthwaite against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. In regards to his style of play, Gordon was utilized as a split striker in Everton's academy and was actually tipped to become a shoulder of the last man kind of forward by former under-23s manager David Unsworth. However, as it turns out, most of his good work on a professional level has come from the wings. In some ways, he's been the victim of his own versatility, and it's become quite clear now that he thrives when attacking space versus being isolated with his back towards goal. He's technically proficient with plenty of speed, energy, acceleration, and explosiveness, but needs to balance that with tactical awareness, fitness, and endurance, which all have room for improvement. As things stand, Gordon is a brilliant ball carrier and an outlet in transition for his side, which could be really handy for Newcastle to instantly turn defense into attack. An underrated aspect of what Gordon has to offer is his movement. He's able to shift his body at speed, which in turn drags defenders out wide and creates space for teammates. A big reason Jesse Lingard was starting for Man United a few years ago despite having dismal numbers in front of goal. Furthermore, Gordon busts a gut to close down the opposition, and pressing in wide areas has become an integral tactic for progressive coaches like Eddie Howe. Newcastle United supporters will know this all too well after the game at St. James's Park, where Gordon and Dan Burn were at each other's throats throughout. Last but not least, Gordon's been a late bloomer from a physical point of view, so is likely still several years away from his peak. You only have to look at how he's been doing for Lee Carsley's England under-21 side, where he's often been the talisman, to know just how high his ceiling is. We tend to forget that young players who aren't fucking weirdos like Haaland or Mbappe will tend to be hit or miss end product-wise, which this comparison to Raheem Sterling perfectly illustrates. Geordies are aware of the importance of patience better than anyone, as Almiron, who's 6 years older than Gordon, couldn't hit a barn door until this year, but is producing goals and assists galore now, so it would be premature to judge Gordon on his career so far. Off the pitch, the kid is teetotal and completely focused on becoming the best version of himself on it, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Eddie Howe and his coaching staff significantly develop Gordon, like they have with countless other players, and turn him into a truly top quality footballer. Cheers for tuning in as always, lads. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, and would appreciate a like as well as a comment on this particular video, because I tell you what, it took me a fucking age to make. Anyways, enjoy your weekend and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.